Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reading Middle English series. My name is Megan Maldonado. This is the second video in the series. The first one dealt with reading Middle English vowel sounds. That's probably the trickiest part to learning how to read Middle English, so if you haven't seen that video or you only watched it once, you may want to go and revisit it, or visit it for the first time. Today's video is going to be a little more of a grab bag. These concepts individually don't take long to get familiar with, but collectively they are still important to reading Middle English. Today's video is going to cover three different topics. We're going to look at diphthongs, which are when two vowels come together to form one sound, one syllable. We're going to look at consonants and how they sound, and we're going to look at some common Anglo-Saxon orthography. That is, some Anglo-Saxon or Old English letters that still linger in Middle English texts, especially in the earlier period.
Okay, everyone's favorite chart. Once again, we have a column for Middle English, this time for the diphthongs. We have the Modern English sound chart equivalent in lieu of IPA, and we have the column for Modern English equivalents, where we hear these diphthongs in Modern English today. Starting at the start, let's look at this first one here. AI, AY, EI, and EY. I'm of course naming the letters as we hear them in modern English. They together make the sound A. 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 We hear this in the words trait and they, even with similar spellings, the same diphthongs in modern English. A. All of these together make the A sound. I know I remarked in the last video that the vowels, like an E, a terminal E, or an ES and ED, might get its own syllable, but here with these diphthongs, we pronounce them as one syllable, one sound. It's not I, it's A. 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 On to the next. AU, AW, aw. A little more intuitive. Aw. Aw. Aw, as in pause or law. Aw. Again, it's not ow, it's aw. EU, EW, oo. Not less of an U sound. And the way we would say that is two syllables, kind of EU. Think of lewd or crew. Lewd or crew. Don't get too fancy and start saying lewd. It's lewd, crew, oo. Ooh. Ooh sound. This one definitely should be a little more intuitive. Oi. 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 Oi is an oink or toy. Oi. This one was a little tricky for me to figure out how to teach. As I write here, it's between the ah and the sounds. So, thought, row, somewhere between those. This is a place where it's more important to remember that it's a diphthong. You're not saying oh, it's somewhere between ah and thought. Thought is how you would pronounce this in Middle English, thought. So it's not quite an it's not quite an oo or an aw. Thought. Aw. 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 And can't stress this enough, as I've stressed a million times, diphthongs only produce one syllable.
Okay, so those were the diphthongs. Now let's get into the consonants. Consonants are not as tricky to learn as Middle English vowels. That being said, there are some important differences between modern English consonants and Middle English consonants, so it's worth getting familiar with them and it's worth practicing aloud. Let's get into those.
Okay, here are the consonants. As I write here, Middle English consonants are mostly very similar to Modern English consonants. There are important exceptions. We're going to talk about those, and there are exceptions to the exceptions. We'll talk about those as well. Now, if you remember from the vowel video, when I said that the terminal E or ES or ED sound, that'll get its own syllable. It'll get pronounced. So I want you to think of Middle English, consonants included, as being much more phonetic, let's say, than modern English. That is, you're pronouncing the letters. So there are fewer silent letters and confusing quiet parts to words than we would have in modern English. Famous example, everyone likes to say and tell, the word night. Now, this would normally be spelled with an I here instead of a Y, offering a Middle English spelling here. But the G and the K, these are not silent in this word. Night would be pronounced knich. Knich. Notice that I am weakly pronouncing the GH here. Knich. It's not a hard G, but it is pronounced nonetheless. Knich. Likewise, the L in the word like half or calf here, to have, as in to have something, a verb. You would pronounce this as halva. Halva. Weakly pronouncing the H, definitely pronouncing the L, and as I just mentioned, that E is getting its own syllable. Halva. Ch, CH, it's pronounced as in church. Let me know if you can think of an example that contradicts this. Of course, I will get to an exception in just a moment. But as opposed to the hard K sound that CH can have in modern English, CH in Middle English is going to be a ch. As we saw in half, or halve, excuse me, halva, H is weakly pronounced at the beginnings of words. Not as aspirated as h, but a little bit of a something. It's not silent. Now, exceptions. The French. We can blame the Normans for this. This is a French word. We pronounce it digne. Digne. The CH, instead of a chivalrous, we would say chivalrous. Chevalerie, if you're saying chivalry. So this would have more of that sh sound than a ch. Likewise here, honor, we would not pronounce it as honor, we would say honor. Now, if you accidentally, as you're reading Middle English to yourself, you say honor instead of honor, but you know that it's the word honor, that's the most critical, especially if it's just you reading for yourself. That being said, be aware of French words, even if you're not super well versed in French. They're going to have their own rules that supersede English because that's par for the course for the Middle Ages in England. If it was French, it was more important. Certainly higher class. Okay. We can thank our buddy Chaucer for helping change that. The R is slightly rolled. Is it critical? If you can't roll an R, you're not going to be able to recognize it. No, but just know that the R is rolled slightly. Don't exaggerate it. If you can't roll your R's, don't fret. SCH, excuse me, pronounced usually as in show. Sh. This would usually make the sh sound. Rarely as in school. So shooing, like the showings of Julian and Norwich, pronounced shooing. Having some of our diphthong friends come over to play. S does not usually, can actually think of an exception, does not take a Z sound. You might normally think, well, when does it take a Z sound in modern English? If you say the word is in modern English, you're not saying is. If you have an American accent, you're not saying is. All right? So is rhymes with this in Middle English, not using a Z sound. And finally, V is sometimes written as a U, still pronounced as a consonantal V. So if you see the word here, and you might be tempted to think it's hewn, as in to maybe chop something up, this would be pronounced as haven. If you're stuck on a word and there's a U or a V that's tripping you up and you're not quite sure what it is, try reversing them. We see it in Latin too, actually, the inverse. You have a V where you might expect the U to be.
Okay, now on to Anglo-Saxon orthography or Old English letters. Don't let this intimidate you. It's really pretty easy. There's only 3 or 4 that I want you to memorize. This is my favorite part of learning how to read Middle English, frankly, because it's kind of the most impressive. This has happened to me a few times. If anybody sees you reading and they see those older looking letters, they assume that you have like this kind of arcane, older, ancient knowledge of the past, and it's really just learning a few new letters of familiar sounds. It's not that hard, but there's a fun payoff when you get to recognize these things and be able to read them for yourself. And also, yeah, you know, if anybody happens to see, it's kind of cool, kind of impressive. Anyway, let's get into those letters.
All right, our Anglo-Saxon letters. These are pretty quick. The real key, as I put in my notes here, are that the names of these letters are worth remembering. They dictate the sound of the letter. I'll give you an example here with the first one. This AE, and I give the capital and the lowercase. This AE smushed together. It's called an ash. It's called an ash, and it makes the A sound, as in cat. A, A, A. Ash, ash. Apologies there if I started to do a little aw sound. It's definitely ash. This is a thorn. Thorn makes the th sound. Thought, as I started to say in Middle English, thought, th, th, thorn, thorn, th. This, you might be thinking, wow, that looks eerily similar to the thorn. Yes, that can be tricky if you're reading a manuscript. This is called a win. Makes a W sound as in wine or winter. W, win. A key difference between these two, you might already be able to see, is that the thorn has a higher top ascender here, even in both capital and the lowercase. The way I memorize this being called a thorn, it might seem a little silly, but it almost looks like it's a thorny, let's say like rose stem. It has these different parts that are kind of sticking out and around. If that helps you memorize it. The win, you know, sorry, you just gotta remember that it's a win. It looks like a P, I know, but this at least, you know, it looks thorny to me, so I remember that the thorn. The ash is a little easier because it's already got what looks like the letter A there, so you can remember that. The win, you just gotta memorize it. The yog. You can hear that I'm kind of pronouncing the GH sound there, yog. It's also a Y sound, and it will indeed make either a Y or a G. That softer sound though. G. This GUH, probably a little more indicative of how it should be sounding. Because gone is really hard. G. G. Remember, we're still pronouncing letters. Either G or Y. Yog. To me, the yog, the letter, I know it looks like the number 3, but a Y and a yog, they're not terribly far off. If you squint, you know, from far away, they look similar. That was my way of remembering that that was a yog. Now you might see sometimes the letter F. I'm not saying F. No. I'm saying F as in ETH. It looks like either a capital D like that, or what looks like a lowercase d with a curve and a line through it. You might sometimes see that, especially really in Old English and Anglo-Saxon, the actual language, not just the lettering. This makes an F sound, just like a thorn does. That's why they call it an F, you know. You're not going to see it much in Middle English. Why? Long story short, under Alfred the Great, the thorn overtook the F, and you really don't see the F lasting into Middle English. So I wouldn't worry about memorizing the F, but if you're curious about what that letter is or was, it does the job of a thorn, essentially. What's the most critical to learn here? Well, I mean, all of them, but the thorn and the yod, in my experience, last into Middle English much longer than the ash or the win. I don't know precisely what the reason for that is. I'm not that deep into the philology and the orthography, but what I can tell you is that the thorn and the yod, especially the thorn, I think, are really important for you to memorize. But you should know all four of these because they do last even into Middle English.
All right, that covers it. We've looked at Middle English vowel sounds, we've looked at diphthongs, consonants, and common Anglo-Saxon orthography. Those are the building blocks. Hooray, you did it. Watch these videos as many times as you need to, because in videos to come, I'm going to be working through actual Middle English texts and we'll read those together. So get familiar with these sounds, watch these videos, rewatch them as many times as you need, because we're going to be reading those texts aloud in order to really get familiar with the language. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the videos to come. Bye.